because I don't want to go backwards. I want to keep going forward. Together, that's exactly where we're going to go. God bless.
I'm Steve Walters.
And I'm J.R. Ross.
This is Rewind. This week in the Capitol, we're shooting it one day early, but we still have a lot of news, J.R.
Thanks to Marquette.
Yeah, hey, kudos to you. You interviewed Representative Knudsen, who's the lead sponsor in the Assembly, on what's going to replace GAB. So I'm going to turn this first segment over to you. Can you walk us through some of the major changes that will be formally announced next week, please?
Essentially, they want to break it into two, which is what we kind of knew was going to happen anyway.
An elections and an ethics commission, right?
And what would happen is, what Knudsen's proposal was, you have each legislative leader, there are 4 in each house, right? Or 4, I'm sorry, in the legislature, each get 1 pick for each commission. So you have 6 members on the ethics commission, 1 each from each legislator or legislative leader, and then the Dems and Republicans separately put forward a pool of candidates. The governor make the final 2 picks. So you have essentially 3 Democratic nominees, 4 Republican nominees on the 6-member commission. It creates a, if you will, a deadlock unless you can get bipartisan agreement. And I think that's part of the design, if you will, to end the, well, I've got 4 votes, you have 3 votes, we override, we can rule, if you will. They have to come to an agreement to get anything done. Same with the Elections Commission. You have 6 members, same setup. Then those 2 commissions nominate somebody to be the commissioner or executive director, whatever you want to call him, with confirmation by the Senate. And here's the key thing, it'd be a 4-year term.
Right.
This gets at Kevin Kennedy, who's been a lightning rod with Republicans for the last 1.5 years. He's been there for, what, 30-some years, going on more than that. They feel like he's been around too long. They want somebody new to come in and have a fresher perspective, if you will. They can't really target Kevin, like, personally,
right,
but they can find a way to eliminate his job.
They can make sure that he doesn't continue in one of his roles, either supervising ethics or elections. But let's go back to the 2 separate panels. So under this appointment scenario, would they be 3-3R, 3R, 3D, and then you'd have a commissioner?
Yes.
Okay.
And the commissioner is just there basically as the lead, bureaucrat, if you will. Now, a couple other interesting changes. The GAB has been criticized for its role in the John Doe investigation.
Yes.
That it would only be allowed to investigate civil infractions. The second it thought it was criminal, got turned over to the DA in the county. Well, law says now if you're a lawmaker, you get tried in your home county, give it to the DA, the home county where that DA of that lawmaker, or where the crime was allegedly committed.
Where the alleged crime was
committed.
committed.
That way you get rid of it, because Republicans, again, are not happy with the GAB and the John Doe. They get them out of the criminal investigation business.
Okay, and again, the details will be announced next week formally, but you've done a lot of good reporting. One other question. This commissioner, you'd have a commissioner for the Elections Commission and a commissioner for the ethics. Would she or he be a voting member?
Not as far as I know, so unless that's changed. But it's set up like the FEC essentially, where you've got basically a block. So that way you have to have, in some ways it makes sense. If you go back to the old elections board, wouldn't really go off the rails. Once you had a libertarian member on that board, then you had an uneven number, and you got like these, whoever could win that libertarian member got to dictate what happened, and you could run rush over the other side. So this kind of sets up that deadlock unless you have agreement on something. Yeah,
I looked it up. The libertarian was added after the 2002 vote for governor, when Ed Thompson got 10.4% of the vote. Right. But yesterday, the chairman of the GAB board, former Judge Gerald Nickel, said, hey, these changes of this could have serious consequences, because we have 4 statewide elections next year. We have a primary in the spring, then we have an April general, then we have a summer primary partisan, and then we have a November. And he offered that interesting proposal. Time out, Ledge, before you break up GAB, why don't you name 1 partisan R, 1 partisan D as, this is key, non-voting members of the board. Let them watch us, be a part of the discussions with the staff and the board for all of 2016, and then these 2 partisans could report back to the full Ledge. Does GAB need to be blown up, tweaked, or hey, it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, this is a 11th hour because Knudsen, Vos, Fitzgerald, and Senator Buchner are going to announce it next week. Is there any chance in heck that Nickel's plan is going to get seriously considered?
I didn't get the impression yesterday that Republicans were rushing to embrace the idea. For a lot of these guys, the train's left the station. Now remember too, the dynamic of the legislature right now. If you look at the Assembly, for example, the vast majority of members anymore came in after the GAB was created.
Yes.
They don't know the old Elections and Ethics Board. They don't have any experience with that. They see, Republicans in the Assembly see an agency that they feel has run amok against them. They're gung-ho to get rid of it. In the Senate, you might have a different dynamic because you have longer serving members who've been around from those old days, also a lot more members who voted for the GAB in the first place. The question becomes, in the Senate, will you get 17 votes for this new proposal, or will you find some compromise? That's where I'd watch the action, if you will. But knowing the Senate Republican caucus, you can't predict what they're going to do at this very moment. They need to meet first and kind of hash it out. And then, as Fitzgerald often does, where's the caucus going to massage it to 17 votes? That's kind of the question.
Yeah, and you also quoted Peter Barkas saying, look, it ain't broke, don't fix it, and 128 of the 132 legislators voted for this GAB in 2007, but your point is very few of them are still around.
Yeah, and if you go back, the Democrats had a news conference yesterday, and they tied in the GAB overhaul, the John Doe changes, the
calling
open
it
record
an overreaching power grab.
That the Republicans have become arrogant and are trying to shield the public from what's happening to Capitol and consolidate power. We've talked about this before, but if you're a Democrat right now, you're trying to make an argument of all these pieces fit together into a Republican Party run amok, and that's going to be part of the argument you'll hear on the floor once this bill comes up.
But one of the quotes that Knudsen gave you when you broke this story in terms of the details, he used the term GAB, we have to end the quote, his term, tyranny, close quote. So when you use the word tyranny, this is a rogue agency operating without any accountability. They are in no mood to compromise and seriously consider the nickel.
And Knudsen's point is that in the GAB, they have consolidated the legislative, executive, and judicial branch essentially into one. That they investigate, they enact the punishment, that they are all power in one spot. That's his issue with it.
Yeah, okay. Another topic. So Charles Franklin was doing his latest poll for Marquette Law School, and he's about to sign off on it on September 21.
Gets a text.
And then he says, you may want to hold off because Governor Walker is going to have a press conference, and the governor withdrew from the presidential campaign. So the value, I think, in the Franklin poll release yesterday is that it was taken, the first statewide poll taken after Walker's announcement. So I want to highlight 8 of the results. JR, jump in. Okay, first, Walker's approval rating, 37% up, 59% down. How big of a problem?
Huge. If you go back and look at the trend line in Marquette, Governor Walker for years had been, well, from 2012 until like 14, had been locked in where you never saw his approval rating drop below like 46%. He was always 46 to 51. You know, he was never going to be a 60% guy, but he was always had this like kind of locked in 46 to 50 and a disapproval that was, you know, 42 to 45. Like he's always kind of static.
In that window.
Yes. All of a sudden now the trend has changed for him where he has flipped upside down. Now the question becomes, was it because he ran for president? Is it because he became used different language, the campaign trail, where he was much more conservative in rhetoric versus when he talked about abortion, for example, in Wisconsin? Is it because he was gone? But whatever it is, this trend has gone from being here to going like this, and he's upside down. How do you reverse that right now? That's a difficult thing for him.
Well, it was also interesting, and that's the second highlight of the poll that I want to show. One way to ask that is spin it forward. Should the governor run for a third term? New numbers, 35% no, 62% yes. Boy, that's a pretty decisive number, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is
okay,
fresh.
but the election is 3 years out.
This is fresh after he dropped out of the race, after this bad run for him. Kind of question is, well, can he really be able to rehabilitate the number? Here's the other thing kind of beneath the surface for Republicans in Wisconsin right now. Governor Walker is closely tied to the Republican Party. He's the face of the Republican Party in Wisconsin. The brand has been hurt, not just for Governor Walker, but Republicans in general. If you're a lawmaker with a G or with an R after your name, you're kind of going, it's not the best numbers for us because this comes after the budget.
Yeah.
All these debates about right to work, prevailing wage, all these things. Is this an indication that people are going, whoa?
Planned Parenthood, GAB, John Doe coming down the line?
This has gone too far. Now, it's hard to like dive deep. And they didn't ask a policy question in this poll because they had so many candidates to test in the presidential race. But I would be interested in numbers on these things. Has the Republican brand kind of lost those moderates? If it has, how do you get it back between now and next November?
And I find it, help me understand. So last Sunday on the Mike Goucher show, which was Politics co-sponsors, former Governor Tommy Thompson, and let's look at that. 20 years in the Assembly, 14 years as governor, ran for president, ran for the U.S. Senate. So he's this, GOP emeritus figure out there, says Governor Walker will not seek a third term. Now that seemed to surprise the governor, who then said, I haven't ruled anything out. I enjoy being governor. Sometime between now and November of 2018, I'll make a decision. Help me understand Tommy's prediction.
Well, let's look at Walker's statement first. Governor Walker's issue is he cannot become a lame duck with 3 years left in his term. So he said, I'm not seeking a cabinet position. The talk about vice president is presumptuous and way out there at this point. He has 3 years left on his term. He has to be relevant. If he says, I'm not going to run again right now, he becomes lame duck with 3 years left, and lawmakers go, I don't really care what you say because I have to worry about my future, by the way, because I'll be here, hopefully after 2018, and you won't.
Right.
So part of his statement is, keep me in the game, if you will. For Governor Thompson, I mean, he's giving an honest opinion about the reality of people don't expect Governor Walker to run for election in 2018. Yes, he could. Yes, he has time to rebuild his image, but the question becomes, well, why would he want to? What's there left to do for him? What's the platform for him? What else can he do to brandish his image nationally? Does he want to go out and make some real money? I mean, he makes, what, 148? That's real money to some of us, but if you're in politics, you can make real money at, a think tank.
As Tommy found out after he left the governorship and after he left the cabinet.
All these options for Governor Walker out there. The other question is one run for president again. If a Democrat wins in 2016, you have a narrower window to need to be relevant before you can run again in 2020, right? If a Republican wins and you're not in the cabinet, you have a longer window. What might you do then? For Governor Walker, it might make more sense, not saying this is what his thinking is, but to run for governor again if there's a Republican governor, because you have another bridge, if you will, to being the next election is open. So there are all kinds of things like that to consider, but again, it goes back to don't be a lame duck.
Well, just one follow-up on this interesting Tommy and Scott exchange. Had Governor Thompson played an active role in Governor Walker's presidential campaign, had he been out waving the Walker banner in a big, big way?
No, I don't know that Governor Walker asked him to do that either. So, I mean, Governor Walker, I don't think they were actually campaigning together or anything like that, no.
Okay. Also, with the governor out, who do Wisconsin Republicans and those registered voters who lean Republican, who do they support as a presidential nominee? Trump, 20%. That's up from 9 in August. Yes. Carson, 16. Rubio, 14. Fiorina, 11%. And Mr. Bush, how about 7% there, Jeb? Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
A couple interesting numbers. Trump, if you look at not just the first choice but the second choice, he was a second choice of 5% of those who voted for others.
Yes.
That means he has a low ceiling, if you will.
Yes.
Rubio, I think, was around 17% for second choice. He has a higher ceiling right now. Now, this is with a 15-person field still.
Yes.
As it narrows down more, they'll change the numbers. But you would say that Donald Trump has a harder climb, if you will, to get to a 40%.
Yes.
Than somebody else might have in that race right now.
And Politico reported yesterday, quoted former presidential nominee Romney as saying Trump will not be the nominee. In his September 21 speech, Governor Walker went out of his way to say the nominee shouldn't be Donald Trump. Ergo, my supporters don't go to Trump. But you and I heard Charles Franklin say yesterday, quite a few did go to Trump. So where did Walker for President voters go after he left? Trump, 22%. Rubio, 14. Carson, 11. Cruz, 10%.
Remember, these are registered voters, not likely voters. So we're now a year, well, let's say we're, 6 months out from the, trying to add up my dates, sorry, 6 months out from the primary. These aren't people who are really tuned in, if you will, right now. So someone's just plain name ID. Donald Trump is well known, so people go, oh, I know that guy. I don't know Ben Carson yet, for example, something like that. So part of it's that. Plus, it's the Donald boomlet. It hasn't quite ended yet, but we're seeing the signs of it kind of fading.
Yes, you are.
The question is, when does it implode, if it does, and who can benefit from that?
Well,
let's remember, there hasn't been a single ad run in Wisconsin yet. Once that happens, you'll really see what people really feel about it.
It's a very good point. And the governor running for president raised the profile of Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch. So I was interesting, and we're going to highlight her approval rating. 21% up, 29% disapprove, but 49% don't have enough information, don't know her. So is she a blank slate out there?
Oh, I think like any lieutenant governor, she's a little bit blank slate. No, I would actually, I would bet you if they polled on Barb Lawton and Scott McCallum at the same period in their respective terms as lieutenant governor, Kleefisch is better known than they are.
Yeah.
But she's been a more active lieutenant governor than
Yep.
her predecessors had been. But still, it's probably a reflection of the general perception of the GOP brand right now. And, you know, I just don't think it's really about her at this point. She's not that well known because she's not, unless you're Ray Junkie, you don't know Rebecca Kleefisch yet. Once she's on the campaign trail, we know she'll probably run someday for governor, just a question of when. Then you'll kind of see her numbers pop up once she's more out there and active and that kind of stuff.
Okay, and of course, Charles Franklin had to poll on the 2016 U.S. Senate race, and the September poll showed Russ Feingold at 50%, incumbent Senator Republican Ron Johnson at 36%, and there was a shift from the August poll. Feingold went up and Johnson went down. Is this, well, the reason I'm going to ask whether that's significant is because Franklin went out of his way to say this poll included 394 Democrat and Democratic leaners, more than the 321 Republican and Republican leaners. Are the Ron Johnson types going to say, well, this poll oversampled on the Ds?
Sure, I've already heard that argument, but if you dive into Franklin's polling method and his numbers, what he'll tell you is he doesn't weight his poll results for party ID. What he believes is that independents move because they don't like a party or like a party. So if you look at his numbers real closely, yeah, there's more Dems than Republicans, but there traditionally aren't his polls. What happens is, what's happening in this one is the independents, who normally say the Republicans, are going back to being independents. And so there's a little bit of a drop there, a little boost for independents and their Democrats. So that's contributing to the a lean toward Dem, if you will, in the sample size, but it might just be because the brand for Republicans isn't doing so hot right now.
And a PS on that, Franklin went out of his way to say 45% of the 803 registered voters surveyed didn't have enough information on either Feingold or Johnson, or even one of them, to answer the question.
Part of what's going on is the presidential race has sucked up all the oxygen in the room, so people aren't focused in on the Senate race. But here's a troubling number for Senator Johnson. He has had a stubborn number of people who don't know who he is, that has not moved almost at all, really, the whole time he's been in office. Here's the dynamic. We've become a blue state presidential races, right? Where, yes, we have very close races in 2004, went heavy for Barack Obama in 8 and in 12. So if you're Ron Johnson, to win re-election, you have to hope it's a close race, top of the ticket for president, and then have enough positive feeling on the electorate that you can overcome a point or two gap.
Yep.
If you can't win. Now, let's say Wisconsin goes Republican, different ballgame, all right? Whole different dynamic. But if we follow the trend of being a blue state in presidential races, he has to find a way to connect with moderate voters to overcome that disadvantage top of the ticket. You look at the past couple of races, Tammy Baldwin and Barack Obama, almost neck and neck. Ron Johnson and Scott Walker in 10, almost neck and neck. You're seeing less of a ticket splitting, if you will, in Wisconsin, top of the ticket. That's the question for Ron Johnson. How does he connect with people and overcome that possible disadvantage top of the ticket next year?
The final question I want to highlight here from the Franklin poll. Democrat and Democratic leaders, when they're asked who should be the Democratic presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton 42%, Senator Bernie Sanders 30%, and Vice President Joe Biden 17%. A 2 percentage point drop in both Hillary and Sanders. Biden up 5. Big deal?
Well, does Biden get in? That's a big question. If you look
He's
again,
now extended his deadline to the end of this month.
If you look at the second choice question again, he had a big second choice pool of voters. Does that mean he's got people who are looking for an alternative to Hillary Clinton? There are so many dynamics in that race of you're seeing people who want an alternative to lifelong politicians, right? Joe Biden is a lifelong politician. He might not capture that Sanders crowd, but he could capture Democrats who aren't thrilled about Hillary Clinton, for example. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going in that primary. And if you look at the numbers real closely, Hillary Clinton's not well liked in Wisconsin. And even though she's not well liked and upside down in her approval rating, she still beat every Republican she's put up against. Now, is that just because the sample is a little bit more Democratic, the brand for Dems is better in Wisconsin, so if you're a Democrat going, well, I'm going to vote for the Dem right now. Is that what's driving it? Or is it really that she can withstand not being well liked, but people still want her to be?
She's 12 percentage points over Bush. Isn't that 50-38?
Yeah.
And she wins against all.
Yeah, so what drives it? It's kind of a unique dynamic for her right now that she's not well liked, but still people are willing to vote for her.
Yeah. Okay, next topic. we don't usually deal with economic decisions on this show, but this one has political implications for the Republicans. When GE announced that they're going to cut 350 engine assembly line jobs in Waukesha, move them to Canada, they blamed the Export-Import Bank, and that just drew in some of our big-name Republicans. So the irony here, Waukesha County is a bedrock Republican county, as you well know. Obama just visited this plant, wasn't it last year?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And now you have this embarrassing, GE blames the Export-Import Bank, and Paul Ryan is one of the reasons that it was not reauthorized. Paul Ryan's statement, there's better ways for Congress to promote economic growth rather than corporate welfare. Then the governor, of course, has to say we're going to do all that we can to reverse GE's decision to move 350 good-paying jobs to Canada. But the governor also said it's unwise for any corporation to be making decisions about where they place work based on one particular vote in Congress. Of course, Milwaukee Mayor Barrett, he's up for re-election. He's trying to score some points. Is there some upside for Democrats on this, or is this just another tragic hit to Wisconsin's economy?
Well, if you could get the average voter to know what the Ex-Im Bank is, maybe. I don't think the average voter knows what it is. They know the jobs are leaving, but that's about it. This has become a political thing because Democrats are trying to point out that Republicans can't get their act together and get things done. Interesting note on what Governor Walker had to say about Ex-Im Bank. I'll leave that to Washington after being the campaign trail for however many months, talking about these issues, saying that's not my fight right now, I'm focused on this stuff. So I don't know that it's going to get any traction politically, but it's an easy hit if you're a Democrat. Look, they won't vote for this thing. That's there as job creator, now we're losing jobs. It's an easy cause and effect. Then you have Republicans and conservative activists saying GE is lying, that they made this decision well in advance. They're just blaming the Ex-Im Bank so they can have an easy scapegoat for a decision that was made before.
How GE's decision, if Governor Walker were still a presidential candidate, would this have been a huge hit nationally for him, for GE?
Fascinating question. Especially with him not really being a big fan of the bank on the campaign trail. I don't know how that would have played out. That'd been interesting to see.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now let's talk about the governor. Well, the State Journal reported on the number of days he was out of the state, not available during the budget talks, although he says he's on the phone constantly, and he probably is. So he launched, there was a term he used at one point, now I've got to have a, quote, be there, close quote, tour. So we looked up where he spent the last week. Beaver Dam, Green Bay, UW-Madison football game, Middleton handing out the awards for the state troopers, Waukesha where he read Chicka Chicka Boom Boom to children at La Casa de Esperanza. If you get a minute, JR, read that to me. And today, he's in De Pere in Cameron. Is this pure retail politics?
Absolutely.
What does he have to do here?
Re-engage, show him back,
Reconnect?
Back on the job. I mean, I don't think that he was doing this because of Marquette numbers, but he knows his numbers aren't good. He knows to be relevant, he's got to be back in the state and out there showing people, hey, I'm back, I'm engaged, I have ideas. So it's part of the reintroduction of Scott Walker into the political discussion, if you will, outside of just about the presidential race.
Okay. So, and we're going to see this for the next year, aren't we, as he tries to stitch together.
The Scott Walker we know. I mean, Scott Walker that we know is constantly on the trail in Wisconsin. He travels a lot. He's been, that was a joke that he should have a second house in Green Bay and pay taxes there because he's there so much in Brown County. I mean, this is a guy who loves being out there. If you ask his aides, he enjoys the grind of being on the trail and meeting with people. He's very good at it. He's getting back to do what he does best. I mean, you have to rebuild the brain if you're Scott Walker. I mean, let's look long term. You think he can run for president again if his poll numbers are 33% or 35% 3 years from now?
That depends on what he achieves over the next 3 years.
So he's got to build it back up. I mean, he has to have a good launching pad, if you will, for what he wants to do nationally next time.
Two final notes. Let's congratulate Town of Delafield Supervisor Cindy Duco. She's just got elected Tuesday in the 99th Assembly District. No big surprise. No Democrat was even.
They had two registered write-in votes, write-in candidates, but I think she got 1,400 votes. You know, it was a very low turnout race, to say the least. But deep red seat, so another conservative voice in the Assembly caucus.
Yep. And the final thing I want to ask you about, the governor seems to be telegraphing that he is pretty close to appointing Court of Appeals Judge Rebecca Bradley to that vacancy on the Supreme Court.
Peter Barkey yesterday said, I will fall over if that does not happen.
Well, and the way he telegraphed it, he said, look, Tommy appointed Diane Sykes, and she then went on.
Janine Geske.
And Janine Geske. So make it even more likely that it's going to be an interim appointment of Rebecca Bradley?
Yeah, well, I talked to Jeannie Geske yesterday. She made one distinction, though. When she was appointed to the bench in 1993, ahead of running in 94, she was not an announced candidate yet. So here, though, you have a different situation where Bradley's already announced, along with Joanne Kloppenburg and Joe Donald. So, but what Geske talked about when I interviewed her was, there's no doubt it's an advantage to being incumbent when you're running for that seat. So that gives her a leg up. The flip side is, and we talked about this last week, is that Bradley is already perceived as Walker's kind of judge, if you will, appointee.
Yeah.
This makes more of that connection, the
He
mantle.
made her a circuit court judge, made her a court of appeals judge.
This carries that mantle even more, so now Walker's numbers aren't very good. Will that be a thing she has to deal with next year in the campaign trail of, well, she's closely tied to Scott Walker, and does it make it a more partisan race because of the perception that, well, she's Walker's appointee to the bench? That's something to watch.
And Joe Donald and Kloppenburg both said they will not meet the Friday deadline to apply for the Supreme Court vacancy, correct?
Well, they weren't going to get appointed anyway, so I don't think.
But, so they reached for the PR upside.
Yeah, say I'm not going to run. They will probably use that against Rebecca Bradley next spring. What's going to be interesting to watch, again, this kind of bubbling dynamic of the Supreme Court race next year is which presidential primary is still alive in April. If neither of them are, no big deal. If both are, even Steven. If one is and one's not, get the whole race up in the air.
Okay, and I'm going to offer one more thing that's very interesting. I went to Rebecca Bradley's campaign website, and Justice Michael Gableman has already endorsed her.
Oh, sure.
I find that fascinating. How is that going to work with the, anyway, okay. So the governor clearly is signaling that he's going to appoint Rebecca Bradley.
Well, if you talk to conservative groups who get involved in Supreme Court races, they've made clear to me that they're going to lobby the governor, once it's appropriate, to appoint Rebecca Bradley, assuming she applies. If she doesn't apply, it'll be a shock to all of us. But assuming she applies, that she's up, they will lobby to make the point of, don't do an interim justice who would serve until the end of the term. Don't wait until next spring. Put a voice on there now that's a conservative voice. We don't want any 3-3 ties. We want to make sure we can maintain the majority that we have, and let's go on. So that's going to be their message to Governor Walker going forward.
Okay, that's great. Just a word, there'll be no Rewind next week. We're taking a week off. Rewind will be back Friday, October 16th. I'm Steve Walters.
And I'm J.R. Ross.